He is the CEO of a huge company, but he hides a secret. So let's start with the recap. Years ago, someone put a substance in his drink. Ever since then, whenever anyone touches him for more than 5 seconds, he adopts that person's appearance for 3 days. Meanwhile, Xiaoliu, who goes to a hotel to meet the parents of her boyfriend, Xicheng. However, she finds him cheating with her friend, and the two start to argue. Just then, Jifan arrives and grabs her arm to cover himself, so she asks him to release her. He falls to the floor, and right at that moment, Jifan transforms into Xicheng. He quickly heads to a room to hide. But Xiaoliu sees him, and thinking it's her boyfriend, she starts yelling and pulling on him, causing Jifan to trip, and they both end up kissing. At that moment, Jifan returns to his normal self, which completely surprises Xiaoliu. But then, Xicheng enters. Seeing them, he accuses her of cheating, so she tries to explain what happened, but Jifan stops her, saying he was the one who kissed her. When they are alone, Jifan asks Xiaoliu to marry him because every time she kisses him, he can return to his normal appearance. However, Xiaoliu doesn't believe him, so Jifan asks his assistant to touch him, and he rapidly transforms. This shocks Xiaoliu, but before she can say anything, Jifan kisses her, and he returns to his true form. Afterwards, he gives her a ring, but angry about the kiss, Xiaoliu throws it away and says she never wants to see him again. Back at her home, Xiaoliu receives a message for a job interview. She finds Jifan there. He asks her out on a date, but she rejects him and leaves. Exiting the elevator, she bumps into her favorite actor, Shinka. Excited, she tells him he's her fan, until the elevator opens and Jifan quickly steps in.
Shen criticizes Jifan for not investing in his movie, and that's how Xiaoliu finds out they are brothers. Once the elevator door opens, Jifan asks Xiaoliu to think over his offer to date him. In hearing this, Shen invites her to a restaurant. She tells him they had met before, but he doesn't recall it. However, he uses his actor's charm and asks her to help him discover his brother's secret, as that's the only way he can blackmail him and make him invest in his movie. Although at first she refuses, she remembers that when they first met, he was very kind to her, and she finally accepts. A few seconds later, she meets with Jifan and tells him she will help him transform by working as his secretary. The next day, Jifan calls Xiaoliu to help him transform, so she sends a text message to Shen to go to Jifan's office and find out his secret. But in the end, Jifan's stepmother overhears the message because Shen had forgotten his phone. Upon arriving, she finds Jifan transformed into Shen, and then she hears footsteps, so she quickly tries to kiss him, but he puts up his hand and her plan fails. Once his stepmother leaves, Jifan kisses Xiaoliu, returning to his normal self, and warns her not to act as a spy again. She still doesn't listen and leaves a camera in his house to record when he transforms. But when she reviews the recordings, the assistant asks to borrow her laptop, and she ends up getting caught. When they're alone, Jifan asks why she placed the camera, to which Xiaoliu lies, saying she did it because she wanted to see his muscles. Hearing this, Jifan goes along with it and takes her to his apartment, where he begins taking off his shirt. Seeing this, Xiaoliu plays along until he pushes her onto the bed, so she quickly confesses the truth and leaves. The next day, Jifan goes to Xiaoliu's house, where he meets her mother, who immediately assumes he is her daughter's boyfriend, so the two are forced to go on a date. The following day, Xiaoliu's mother invites Jifan to dinner, which annoys Xiaoliu, so she makes him wash the dinner dishes while she takes a bath. But when she gets out, she trips and screams, so a worried Jifan rushes to help her. However, Xiaoliu thinks he's a pervert and throws soap at him.
This upsets him and he decides to leave. But the door doesn't open because Xiao Liao's mother had locked him in. Once she's changed, he reluctantly treats her arm gently, which makes her start to see him in a romantic way. Minutes later, she goes to look for food, and they play a game where they confess something about their lives and drink, finding out that Jifan's mother and Xiao Liao's father have passed away. They comfort each other, but Jifan does so with a song that touches Xiao Liao's heart. However, she doesn't want to fall in love with Jifan, so she meets up with Shen to forget him. In the end, she reveals her brother's secret to him, but strangely, he takes it very calmly, and she realizes that he is Jifan. At that moment, the real Shen arrives and fades from the shock.
So, in the end, Jifan asks her not to tell Shen his secret because he will tell their stepmother and she will use it against him. Having said this, he kisses her, and once he leaves, Xiao Liu helps Chen. A reporter sees them and publishes the news that they are dating, which angers Chen's fans, who send a package full of threats to Xiao Liu. Discovering this, Jifan calls the reporters and tells them that Xiao Liu is his fiancé, which makes the fans stop harassing her. However, now they must act affectionately in front of the cameras. The next day, Shen asks Jifan again to invest in his movie, but he refuses because he lost a lot of money when he invested in his previous film. Angry, Shen goes looking for Xiao Liu, and using his charm, he asks her to tell him his brother's secret. So they go to a restaurant, but she still doesn't tell him anything because she can't stop thinking about Jifan. On her way out, she receives a call from the assistant, who informs her that Jifan needs to transform because his stepmother is at the company. So she quickly runs and kisses him, showing him she's on his side and won't reveal his secret. The next day, both attend an engagement party, where someone mocks Xiao Liu and tries to hit her. So Jifan stops her and Xiao Liu takes him out before he changes his appearance. On arriving home, she refuses to kiss him. But in the end, they trip and kiss, so he returns to his normal form. The next day, Shen invites Xiao Liu out, which makes Jifan jealous. Later, Jifan's friend named Joey arrives from abroad, and we realize that she likes Jifan. This bothers Xiao Liu, especially when Jifan tells her that his father wanted him to marry Joey. Days later, they end up having dinner together, where Joey announces that she will marry Jifan and hands an invitation to Xiao Liu. Quickly, Jifan tries to explain that is not true, but Xiao Liu stops him and congratulates them on their wedding. Later, Jifan tells Joey that he will not marry her. And upset, she goes to the stepmother, who advises her to find out the secret between Jifan and Xiao Liu in order to separate them. The next day, Shen confesses to Xiao Liu that he likes her and asks her to go out with him, but she rejects him. However, they are both photographed and a new article is released, which Jifan sees, and he quickly goes looking for Xiao Liu. Once he finds her, he apologizes to her and asks for another chance, confessing that he loves her and that she is the only woman he wants to marry. This makes Xiao Liu very happy, and she also confesses that she loves him, and they start a real relationship. A jealous Joey then tricks Xiao Liu and Shen to meet at a hotel, and then she tells Jifan that Xiao Liu is cheating on him with her brother. However, her plan fails because when she enters, she doesn't find Shen, but Jifan. This surprises her so much that she takes the camera she had installed, discovering Jifan's secret, which she tells the stepmother. Meanwhile, Jifan and Xiao Liu end up spending the night together until the next day, when Jifan receives a call from his assistant, who warns him that his stepmother is about to reveal his secret. In a rush, Jifan arrives to the office, where his stepmother shakes his hand so that he transforms him for everyone. But she turns off the lights and kisses him before that happens. So when the lights come on, everyone sees them kissing. Jifan announces to them that he will marry Xiaoliu, which angers his stepmother. Later, Shen meets with Joey and finds out she's filming a movie that her sister is funding. There, he gives her the pendant that she dropped last time they met. Seeing it, she tells him that he was the one who gave it to her 5 years ago when he rescued her from a place where she had been locked, and that he even sang a song to comfort her. However, Shen doesn't remember anything, so Xiaoliu realizes that the person she met that night was Difan, and he was the one she fell in love with, so she quickly goes to look for him. On arriving, they talk about that day, and minutes later, Difan kneels down to ask her to marry him. Very happily, she accepts and they seal their love with a kiss. The next day, the stepmother visits Jifan and asks to make peace with a toast. But minutes later, he starts to feel unwell, and here we find out that he was the stepmother who ordered the substance to be put in his wine 5 years ago, and now she had put in a stronger substance. On arriving at his apartment, we see that Jifan has transformed into Xiaoliu. So, the stepmother threatens him, saying that she has a video of him transforming and that she will easily remove him from the company because she works with the competition. However, once she finished speaking, the real Jifan appears, revealing that Joey had overheard the stepmother's plan and had switched the wine. After telling everyone else, they only acted according to the plan in order to record and have evidence of her fraud. However, since she is his brother's mother, Jifan tells her he wondered for her unless she resigns from the company. But the stepmother doesn't give up and attacks Jifan. So, she eventually goes to jail. On the other hand, Joey returns abroad, Shen wins awards, and finally, we see our happy couple reuniting to celebrate their first wedding anniversary, where Xiaoliu tells him they're going to be parents, and he becomes very happy, thus ending the mini drama. If you liked it, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any other recap. Until next time!